we're proud to present Animal Time, a program on which you'll see all sorts of animals from your own backyard and from all over the world. So gather around. There's loads of fun for big and small. From the beginning to the very, very end. A river pier not far from Times Square is a long way from elephant country, but that's where our elephant hunt started. The American Scout was to take us across the Atlantic to France. First stop, Paris, but no time out to see the sights. We left the shadow of the Eiffel Tower behind us as we headed south over the French Alps toward the Mediterranean. This is the fastest route to elephant country, to France, overland to the Mediterranean and Egypt, and then to follow the Nile deep into the jungles of Africa. Egypt, symbol of civilization, with its wonders of the ancient world, would have gripped us in its own timeless tempo, had we not been so anxious to pick up our safari. We stopped only long enough to ask directions from an Arab. He didn't seem to understand a word we said. However, his camel was quite a conversationalist, but we didn't know whether he was giving us directions or just complaining about the heat. No more mountains, no more deserts, as we traded our automobiles for a river boat. Our safari traveled upriver to our first encampment. To entertain their American guests, our native hosts had planned an ostrich hunt on horseback, cowboy style. We were amazed to discover that an ostrich can travel 60 miles an hour. Watch out for those long legs. An ostrich doesn't look very dangerous, but one kick from that powerful leg can easily kill a man. Upriver again, nearer and nearer to elephant country. Our safari boats kept close together. The banks were lined with hungry-looking crocodiles. One playful shove from any of these friendly hippos could mean a good to the last bite smile on the face of a satisfied crocodile. One of our safari leaders had heard that there was to be a night crocodile hunt from a nearby village. We decided to make camp and join the hunt. There was all the drama of a Hollywood production, with the silent moving native canoes and long thin spears against the black background of a moonless night. The idea was to shoot at an almost invisible target, a crocodile half hidden in the dark waters, and to emerge, spear him, and keep him from hiding below the surface of the water. We had reached the end of our river journey. Next, we moved inland to pick up the trail of a lone bull elephant. Often an old bull forced from leadership of the herd will turn into a wandering, vicious killer. The natives have told us of such an outlawed elephant, but as yet, we could find no trace of him. However, we did startle a herd of giraffes, who bounded off. Except for one curious fellow, who surveyed us very carefully, shrugged his shoulders, and walked away. We continued our search for some sign of the elephant's trail. Suddenly, one of our guides discovered the unmistakable path left by the killer elephant. We knew that we were closing in. It wasn't long before a sharp-eyed native spotted the big fellow, way off in the distance. Some sixth sense must have warned him, for he headed through heavy brush toward the protection of the jungle. We had hoped to finish off the outlaw killer on the open plain, but now we were forced to follow him into his territory, the deep underbrush. We had to proceed quietly and cautiously. Every sound, every movement might mean 4 tons of charging death. Suddenly we saw him, but no possibility of a shot. Finally, we had him within range. This fallen giant is majestic even in death. Downriver now to the country of the Maasai tribe, the Lion Warriors. But that's another sterling film.
New Zealand is a land of countless lakes and streams of every size, clear and cold, ideal angling waters everywhere. But except for an abundance of eels, all these waters were originally almost barren of fish, and of freshwater sporting fish there were none. Now, quinnet and Atlantic salmon have been acclimatized in southern waters, where heavy runs are experienced. Both brown and rainbow trout have taken kindly to New Zealand conditions, and are well established all over the country. Their number and size have made New Zealand angling world famous. To the angler, there is more in his sport than the satisfaction of catching fish. There is appreciation of his surroundings, the enjoyment of the peace and quiet of the lake shores and riverbanks, from which he may cast a fly on well-stocked waters. In New Zealand, the angler has practically unrestricted access to all fishing waters, and the government and acclimatization societies cooperate in keeping them well-stocked. Hatcheries have been set up in suitable locations, as here in the famous Rotorua Thermal District. From the hatcheries, supplies of trout over are distributed to all parts of the country for restocking streams and for bringing in new waters. The hatcheries also rear trout on the premises, from over to fry or young fish ready for liberation. As growth goes on, the young fish can be seen inside the egg, the eye appearing first as a dark spot. After hatching, the yolk sacs remain attached to the fry and sustain them until they're able to feed by mouth. When the fry have grown to the size of your little finger, they're ready for release in the streams. They're taken there in special cans, and before they're let go, the temperature of the water is carefully checked. Some of those being released here may survive long enough to grow into fish of 12 to 15 pounds weight. In the early days of acclimatization, trout reached enormous size, up to 25 and even 30 pounds. Fresh supplies of ova for the hatcheries are obtained in the spawning season. Formerly the supplies were imported, but now the hatcherymen can get them from the trout in New Zealand waters. The men go to the mouths of streams and drive the fish up to a barrier which has already been fixed across the upper reaches. Holding a length of wire netting from bank to bank, they wade upstream, driving the fish before them. At a point a few yards below the fixed barrier, the wire netting is pegged in place across the stream to keep the fish penned up in a small area. They can then be lifted out in nets for stripping, after which the fish are returned to the water. The work of the hatcherymen keeps up the stock of fish in all the angling waters of New Zealand, and also ensures that there'll be a plentiful supply of everything needed to produce speckled beauties like these.